Hey, it's Boyd from AIRBOYD, and this is day one that we've been allowed to share the preview release of Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I'm going to jump in and get to some of the comments right away. So, look, Microsoft is marketing this as a game. The question is going to be, is it going to end up being a great flight simulator? Many of you have invested thousands of dollars, pounds, and euros in a fantastic flight simulator set up at home and are not going to want to play the gaming side of this. You're into the simulator side of it and what that can do for you. It's not always going to be perfect. For me, in the video where we try and fly to Sydney, I expected that when the aircraft was slewed to a certain point, that it would be in the correct configuration when it got there. That, of course, is just something that happens to me because when we do flight training in the simulator at the airline, the sim instructor sitting behind you makes sure the aircraft is in the condition it's supposed to be in to land. And that's something I expected from this, and it might be in the eventual release, and it might not. Now, one of the biggest complaints I get is the flying inside versus outside. And for me, this is just going to come down to, I was trying to balance the, should we call it the beauty of the game with the flight. Now, when I sit in the cockpit, and I've got close to 10,000 hours in Boeings now coming up, currently flying the 777. The view from back here is a bit far. Probably it's a little bit closer to that. I can just sort of see the top of the instruments, and I sit higher. Now, I've adjusted this as high as I can get it in the settings, and it does have those settings. It's just not quite there for me. And there's a finesse of being able to see down the top of the windshield here. There's sort of a straight line that you look down that gives you a view of the runway. So as I hit Alt up, the keyboard version says height in cockpit, but as you can see, it moves me forward. So the view I see from my eyes at work is actually more like this, which is not a great view for flying, and you can't see the instruments. So from a simulator standpoint, I'm probably looking at, let's call it here to accurately fly if you're looking inside and outside, because I'm usually cross-checking the airspeed down here, the altitude, and then the ILS, or VNAV, whatever you have as the underlying approach. Now, for the purposes of showing this off, because a lot of the instrumentation and controls aren't working on the move control panel for me, I found them distracting and it was easier to turn off. Now, when I look at this view and I zoom in a little, I'm seeing a field of view for me. And this is closer to sort of what I would see at work. And that's sort of like about the width I would get. I don't have the full periphery, and they were talking in the original launch that they were going to try and support curved screens. Track IR is already out, which will help a lot. I just don't happen to have one. They'll allow you to look left and right and be able to glance at those instruments while being closer to the windshield. And then, of course, VR is still on my Christmas list because the ability just to take your head and, look around is something that really will bring this together, particularly for takeoffs and landings. Now, I like the HUD display here. Granted, a lot of you looking at this and going, hey, there's a plane in the middle, it's a game. I kind of see through the game when I'm flying, or sort of through the plane, rather, when I'm flying. And I'm looking at the airspeed, the angle of attack, flaps trim, altitude, vertical speed, the heading up in the corner, like I would an instrument panel. Maybe what would be nicer is if they got sort of a HUD display, like the HUD system in the 737, to overlay, and that you could have a field of view that was flat without the aircraft in it. In the meantime, I was trying to show off both things. I get it's not perfect for everybody, and it's not going to be. This is just a way of showing off. Now, the entire time I've been doing this, you frame rate guys have been staring that bottom right-hand corner. So I went out and tried to noob this as best I can. Microsoft is going to put this in Game Pass. Everybody on the planet who has Game Pass is going to get it. There's the basic entry level, then there's the full simulator level. I went out and bought a streaming rig so I could try and share this with you because we were going to get it, 3 weeks earlier than everybody else and be able to show it off. I thought that was valuable. I've gone in, set it down to very high and 1080p, and you can still see it's down there just under 30 frames per second right now. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about frame rate capture on the beta forums and the alpha forums before that. I'm not entirely sure what exactly is going on. To me, it seems like if there's something that can be rendered without using full 60 frames per second, they're just cutting a couple frames in there and doing that. And we're sitting here still right now. It doesn't need 60 frames per second. Probably not. So that's something that we'll find out. There's not really been a full Q&A session since we've been able to release this. I hope there's a further chance for us to ask questions for you. So please keep the comments coming. And I know there's complaints about some of the things I've done already, but look, this was supposed to be a quick and dirty release of the program as it is now. I don't find with a single mouse setup that going around and attempting to use the tiller to steer the aircraft is going to be something that's going to be anywhere near as useful as just going on outside and kicking in the rudder pedals, which in real life probably wouldn't get you at a 90-degree turn, but they've set it up in here so it does. So that's the balance between that and the FPS. So for the most part, because everything's not quite right on the aircraft yet, it's still better just to show you on the inside. But look, let's see if we can see some wind flex. Look, they've spent a lot of time getting engine exhaust in there. Go ahead and slap the power up here. Turn the brakes off. Even pop up the spoilers for you really quickly. Put those back down. It tracks pretty well on the center line like it's supposed to. A lot of the video I showed you was trying to show you what's going on outside, what they've done with the airports. LAX just happens to be an airport I'm intimately familiar with, and they've done an awful lot of 3D modeling. And it's something that everybody's mentioned lags a little. Listening for the V1 there in the background. I think I missed it, so I'm going to go ahead and gently pull back. Now, this is set up as a fully loaded, fully fueled 747. And here, let me pull tight and see there's very little wing flex or anything else. And for an aircraft of this weight, not quite right yet. But you know what? They're still working on it. I think Microsoft is relying on a lot of the third-party partners that they have here to develop better aircraft for them and get the integrations correct. And I think that's probably why the FMC from Honeywell and other things just doesn't work correctly. Now, it really accelerates fast at this weight, which is unusual. A lot of the things I showed before, people said, I didn't have the cockpit set up right. It's just not working correctly for me yet. And as a Boeing pilot, I find that far more distracting than not, because I expect things to work the way they do at work, and they're not right now, so that's fine. And some of you prefer seeing the actual view from inside the cockpit like this. They've spent so much time rendering the outside and working on the outside and providing the outside that for me, as someone who actually has his head up here sticking out the window all the time, I prefer looking outside. And my family will mention, if I get the window seat on the aircraft, I'm still looking outside for takeoffs and landings. I want to see what's going on outside. So it's not going to be perfect, and that's sort of the view that I would normally have at work, just a little bit higher in my seat. And of course the seats are adjustable. I've done everything I can with the keyboard to try and get this view higher based on what it has. Now it's a great view, and it's something that will work great for most people. And the simulator people are going to enjoy this if they get the sim stuff down correctly. And now you can see at 1080p, I don't think the world looks quite as great as it did at 4K. Also, I was unable to stream the HDR, which is fine. So you can see it got a little bit blocky outside compared to the full 4K version. It's still streaming at 23 right now. I still think as you get higher away from the ground that you have less of that frame rate issue. It's just a matter of it working. So there are still things that I really love about the game. And yeah, I'm going to keep calling it a game because I think that's really what we are right now. One of the big things is, especially in a pre-COVID world where I talked about, could this be a way of visiting places on the planet for people and seeing things that you wouldn't normally be able to see? Virtual tourism. Now we're in a post-COVID world. I still see this as being a great way of unlocking the Bing database and being almost more of a Bing viewer. And then the third-party people are going to come in and fix the air traffic control functions. They're going to fix the aircraft functions. They're going to have deliveries. Hopefully, those content packs aren't going to break the bank. But I think that's what we're really looking at here. So, you know, I can fly it this way. I just prefer being able to see more outside, and the heads-up display works for me. It's not going to work for everybody, which is fine. I will try and get into a stream version for this as soon as they release it, and we can try and go through and chat and take out some of the things that people want to see. And you can see that the rendering just basically completely disappeared on downtown Los Angeles. It's gone back to blocks, which is much like I would actually see in one of the older simulators at work. The newer simulators have a sort of a Google Earth vision. As I've been saying since I saw this last year, the unlocking of the Bing database and being able to represent the three-dimensional planet as somewhere that you can go, fly, and pretty much see and do anything you want. Taking the Cub down to Australia, to Uluru, the Great Pyramids of Giza, even landing in front of the Sphinx, stopping, taking a look around, taking a selfie. We're so used to seeing a drone view world, a selfie view world, being able to get up close and touch these things without necessarily seeing other people there. I think that this is something that's going to appeal to a lot of people, particularly Game Pass people who've not done anything like a flight simulator before. I think it's a fantastic way of unlocking the Bing database, using the Azure cloud to render the planet like this is a way of really opening up a lot of things to a lot of people. You know, here's the Cub pulling up right in front of the Sphinx, something that you're not normally going to be able to do unless you've got some James Bond style filming permit. How about an overflight of Angkor Wat? You can pretty much do whatever your imagination can think of and what you can search. A lot of the smaller airports will get you to some really interesting things. As I said, I wasn't able to find Stonehenge. I'm going to have to go back and do that one. So it's almost become a bit of a virtual scavenger hunt in some sense. And you can see that it's not all perfect yet. 3D rendering using a machine does have some limitations, and you can see it here in the Mir mine in Russia. The bottom portion of the mine, which is covered in water, is supposed to be caved in. As you can see, it sort of made itself a Devil's Tower spire right in the middle here with the water on top. It does make for a very interesting look, and it will be a great thing to fix later on, but in the meantime, there's still a lot of the planet that needs fixed. But it's not all bad. I was out in Belize looking for the Big Blue Hole and came across a Lighthouse Reef airstrip just north of where the hole is, and thought I'd come and land, and was totally surprised to find a follow me truck, fuel truck, and even someone to park me. So these little things in there that are available and prepared to do almost seem Easter egg-like, and it was really exciting the first time I found it. Granted, I did overshoot him a little here, but you'll see that he actually waves me into position and obviously wants me to shut my engine down as I get in here. So I'll leave you with that. Please keep with the comments. I'll try and respond as I can, and hopefully we'll get to the point where we can do a live stream here, and we'll do real-time working on the development stage of this and what it's going through. Remember, early view, it's still preview. Looking forward to seeing this come out, and I will keep trying to get some videos out for you.